The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick, is based on the novel written by Stephen King in 1977. The story begins with Jack Torrance becoming the winter caretaker of the Overlook Hotel in Colorado after losing his teaching job. He is accompanied with his family, including his wife Wendy and son Danny, who begins to have interactions with the paranormal. As months go by, the winters become longer and Danny's visions become more disturbing. Through this, Jack begins discovering the hotel's dark secrets and begins to unravel into a homicidal rampage on trying to kill his family, due to the plethora of spirits that have been taking over his sanity. For my director's cut, I have chosen 3 scenes that I believe are the most overlooked yet hold the greatest significance. Throughout my scenes, one will notice the hotel's labyrinth. While this is shown as extremely symbolic, it was an addition to the film that had not been written in the book. This is because of author Stephen King's hatred for the way that the scenes were expressed in the film. Therefore, director Stanley Kubrick came up with the idea of adding the labyrinth, which not only enhanced the horrifying outcome of the film, but also adds a thrilling addition for viewers to enjoy.
You're gonna lose. I'm gonna get you. You better run fast. Look out. I'm coming in. Okay. Danny, you win. Let's take the rest of this walking. Huh?
Okay.
Whew. Give me a hand. Oh, isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
In my first clip, Danny and his mother are having a race through the hotel's labyrinth. At first glance, this seems to be an irrelevant bonding moment between the two, which is later shown to hold great relevance. The scene's intention of a loving moment, shown through the bright lights suggesting that this is a happy scene, is undercut by the selected music. An ominous soundtrack plays, leaving the audience confused and full of suspense because of the contradicting music.
We made it. Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
The second clip begins with Jack straggling towards the model of the labyrinth as he leans over and begins grinning at it. As the camera zooms in, the audience sees that his wife and child are walking inside the model. By looking through the realism lens opposed to the supernatural, Jack is unable to see what we as the audience see. This clip is used as a metaphor that signifies Jack's suggested power over his family by towering over them as the camera angles portray how small and helpless they are. Once again, the soundtrack is portrayed by using enticing, confusing, and slightly horrific tactics as the music is left to portray that something is about to happen. In this scene, we also see how Jack's persona comes into play, by Jack putting on a mask to portray that he is a loving father who is looking for a fresh start, though this is contradicted by the way Jack towers over his family. In my third clip, we see that in the final moments of the film, Jack is chasing his family through the same labyrinth. As expressed previously through scene 1, both Danny and Wendy know the way out of this treacherous maze while Jack does not. Because of this, Danny and Wendy use it to their advantage as it is their last hope as survival. Successfully, they leave the maze, jumping into a rescue car, leaving Jack ridden with pain from the extreme cold as he dies slowly overnight. This scene takes place in the hotel labyrinth, but in the winter and at night, allowing the audience to feel the true darkness that the scene gives off. Also, the soundtrack still intense but extremely louder than the previous scenes portraying the climax. The scene also shows Jack's shadow that portrays his darker side, which is shown through his acts of trying to murder his family. This can be related to Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory through the id, as Jack acts on impulse by not thinking clearly of the consequences that could happen to him and his family, shown by his death in the maze. Now referring back to scene 2, where Jack leans over the model of the maze, that we see him portraying himself more powerful than his family, now has a second meaning of Jack looking into his unknown death that will soon take place, connecting the suspenseful music that is shown in that scene to the last scene that results in the death of Jack Torrance.